Bali's always been seen as one of the cheaper places to live in Southeast Asia, but in 2025, that picture's a little more complicated. Prices have gone up in a lot of areas, especially in the south. And if you've been watching videos or hearing people talk about how cheap it is to live here, you might not be getting the full story. Some people get by on less than $1,000 a month. Others spend triple that without even realizing it. It all comes down to where you stay, what you eat, how you get around, and the kind of setup you're actually looking for. And what looks affordable at first can start to add up fast when you factor in the things nobody really talks about, like visa fees or just how much more expensive Western stuff is compared to local options. So if you're moving to Bali or planning to stay a little longer, this video is going to show you what it actually costs to live here. You'll see how much you need if you're trying to keep things as cheap as possible, and what kind of place you'd be living in with that budget. And if you're going for something a bit more comfortable, you'll see what that looks like too, and how much extra it takes to get there. Alright, let's get into it. Let's start with rent, since that's where most of your monthly budget usually goes. If you're trying to keep things more affordable, guest houses are one of the most common choices. You get a private room, usually with a bathroom and either a fan or AC. Some places offer a shared kitchen, and once in a while, you'll find a room with a small kitchen built in. Prices for a guest house are usually around $200 a month, which makes it one of the most budget-friendly options. Now, if you're going for something more comfortable, villas offer a completely different living setup. These are full houses, usually in quieter areas with more space and better design. A lot of them have private pools, enclosed gardens, and a more modern layout overall. They're built for longer stays, which means better natural light, proper working areas, and a stronger, more reliable internet connection. And even though they're more expensive, that extra comfort makes a big difference if you're planning to stay a few months or work remotely. Most decent villas go for around $1,000 a month, sometimes a little less if you're outside the most popular areas. Food is another category where costs can change a lot depending on what you're going for. If you stick with local food and eat at warungs, which are small family-run restaurants, meals are really affordable. Dishes like nasi goreng or mee goreng usually start around 25,000 rupiah, which comes out to about $1.50. Even though they're simple places, most warungs are clean, organized, and serve decent food. It's not fancy, but you're not likely to get sick either. For a lot of people, it becomes the go-to option for everyday meals. But if you want Western food, the prices jump pretty quickly. Meals like burgers, pizza, or pasta usually fall somewhere between $6 and $10 depending on the place in the dish. Compared to local food, it's a big difference. And if you eat that way all the time, your monthly spending adds up fast. Still on the topic of food, there's also grocery shopping, but to be honest, it's not something people do to save money. If anything, it usually ends up costing more than just eating out. If you shop at places like Pepito, Bintang, or Grand Lucky, you'll find a lot of imported items, but the prices are high. Things like cheese, cereal, sauces, or wine can get really expensive. A lot of it is priced the same as a Western restaurant. So if you're buying that kind of stuff, you're not saving anything. You're just paying to cook it yourself. Even local products don't always come out cheaper. If you go to the market, buy vegetables, rice, eggs, and try to make a full meal, the cost is often the same as just grabbing something at a warung. Getting around in Bali is pretty straightforward. Almost everyone rents a scooter. It's the fastest and cheapest way to move, especially in areas where traffic gets crazy. Monthly rental prices start around $60 for a basic model and can go up to $100 or more if you want something newer or more powerful. It also gives you way more freedom to explore. You can get to places that are harder to reach by car or where drivers just aren't willing to go. If you're visiting spots that are more remote or want to move on your own schedule, having a scooter makes a big difference. The only thing is, traffic here can get pretty chaotic, especially in tourist-heavy areas. A lot of roads are narrow, filled with potholes, and there's barely any street lighting at night. So if you're not used to driving in those conditions, it takes some getting used to. If you're not comfortable riding a scooter, there's always Gojek and Grab. You can order a car or a motorbike directly from your phone. A short ride on the back of the scooter usually costs around $1, but if you're booking a car, expect to pay closer to $3 for the same distance. It's still cheap compared to most Western countries, but more expensive than renting a scooter. If you're planning to ride a scooter in Bali or do anything a little more adventurous like diving or hiking, it's a really good idea to have travel insurance. Safety Wing is a travel insurance made for digital nomads, backpackers, or anyone taking an extended trip. It's one of the best options out there if you're staying abroad for a while. It covers medical emergencies, trip interruptions, lost luggage, motorbike accidents, which are pretty common in Bali, and even flight delays. You can also upgrade your plan to include adventure sports or add extra protection for your gear, like cameras and laptops. It works in over 180 countries, and you can sign up even if you're already traveling. Plus, claims are quick and straightforward with no complicated paperwork. If you want to travel with peace of mind, scan the QR code on the screen or click the link in the description to get covered with Safety Wing today. If you're planning to hit the gym while you're in Bali, it's actually pretty affordable. A single session usually costs a little over $3, but most people just pay monthly, which comes out to around $16. Most gyms at that price are pretty average. You've got enough equipment to get a decent workout in. Basic machines, free weights, sometimes a small stretching area, and usually some kind of air conditioning. Nothing fancy, but it works. That's what most gyms are like around the island. There are some more upscale places too with extra features, but unless you're after something specific, you probably won't need anything more than the basics. A lot of the beaches in Bali look like they're free, but in reality, many of them charge a small entrance fee, usually around $1. It's not a big deal, but if you're hitting multiple beaches every day, especially over a longer stay, those small fees can start to show up in your costs. This happens more often in the southern part of the island, which also happens to be where the most beautiful beaches are. Think white sand, dramatic cliffs, and that mix of turquoise and blue water. They're the ones you see all over Instagram, and yeah, they're worth visiting. On the other hand, beaches closer to areas like Canggu and Kuta are usually free to access. They're not as scenic, but they have more built-up areas and better infrastructure. They're easier to reach and don't usually charge any entrance fee. Another cost that can come with beach days is if you're into surfing. If you're looking to rent a board, it's pretty straightforward. Most places charge between $5 and $10 for a couple of hours depending on the beach and the kind of board you're getting. If you're just starting out and want to take a lesson, expect to pay somewhere between $20 and $30 for a 1-hour private session with an instructor. And if you're joining as a pair or in a small group, the price usually goes down a bit per person, depending on how many people are in the class. And to wrap up the whole beach topic, there's also the option of spending the day at a beach club. You'll find them all over Bali, and the price really depends on the vibe of the place. Some are pretty simple, others go all out with live music, big pools, and full-on food and drink service. Atlas Beach Club is one of the biggest ones on the island, and it's worth checking out if you're into that kind of scene. You can spend the whole day there, and depending on the package, it can get pretty expensive. But there's also a cheaper online ticket you can buy starting at around $7. That one includes entry, a free drink, and access to the pools and most of the main areas, which is already a great deal for what you're getting. If you want to book that ahead of time, the link's down in the description of this video. Just click it, reserve your ticket, and you're good to go. If you're planning to work online while you're in Bali, you'll probably want to know what the co-working situation looks like. A lot of guest houses and hotels already offer pretty decent Wi-Fi, which is enough for most people. But if you need something faster, more stable, or just want a quieter place to focus, co-working spaces are a solid option. Most co-working spots charge somewhere between $100 and $150 per month. A lot of them also double as cafes, and when you sign up for a plan, you usually get a discount on food and drinks too. One more thing to factor into your monthly costs is your phone plan. Most people go with Telkomsel or XL Axiata, the two main providers in Bali, and the prices are actually really low. You can get around 60 gigabytes of data for about $29, which is more than enough for most people. Coverage is solid across the island, even in more remote areas, and it's easy to find places selling SIM cards. A small cost that a lot of people forget to budget for is laundry. Most places you'll stay don't come with a washing machine, so people usually drop their clothes off at a local laundry shop. It's usually charged by weight, and the average is around 60 cents per kilo. Another thing you'll need to include in your budget is the visa. There are two main types that most people end up using. The first one is the B1 tourist visa. It costs $35 and gives you 30 days in the country. You can extend it once for another 30 days, but after that, you'll need to leave Indonesia. A lot of people fly to another country nearby, like Thailand or Malaysia, spend a few days there, and then come back to restart the process. So besides the visa fees, you've also got to account for flights and any extra travel costs that come with that. Then there's the B211A visa, which is also used for tourism and is common among digital nomads. It gives you 60 days right away, and then you can renew it twice, staying up to 6 months without leaving the country. The visa itself costs about twice as much as the B1, and you'll usually need to go through an agency to help you get it, which adds some extra fees. So if you go with the B211A, you'll spend more on getting the visa through an agency. If you go with the B1, you'll spend more on flights every 2 months. In the end, the total cost ends up being pretty similar, so it really just depends on what makes more sense for you. There are other visa options available too, depending on how long you plan to stay or what you're doing in Bali, but these two are by far the most common. And because visa rules can change, it's always a good idea to check with immigration or a local agency to make sure everything's up to date. So in the end, the real cost of living in Bali depends on how you set up your day-to-day life. If you're keeping things basic, staying in a guest house, eating mostly local food, renting a scooter, and sticking to essentials, it's totally possible to live here for under $1,000 a month. But if you're going for more comfort and adding in small extras like beach clubs or renting a surfboard, you're probably looking at something closer to $2,000 a month. The great thing is that Bali gives you that flexibility. You can adjust how you live based on what matters to you and how much you want to spend. And having a clear idea of what things actually cost makes it way easier to plan and enjoy your time here without any surprises. If this video helped you out, consider subscribing and leaving a like. It supports the channel and keeps me motivated to keep bringing you quality content like this. And don't forget, if you want to travel with peace of mind, check out Safety Wing. The link is in the description. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.